Hello, Young Turks. My name is Will McCracken. Now, this is the first time I've tried contacting you guys. On my other YouTube channel, I've sent you various messages, and if you were to check my YouTube channel, there's a link directly to it. Some of the points that you had risen, and I've been taking notes the whole time I listened to this video. It's the longest war we've ever been in. Yeah, it is. Because we're fighting an unwinnable war. If you look at history, look at the Russians when they tried to invade Afghanistan, they failed utterly. Reason being, Afghanistan is too tribal. There is no way that we can honestly get the entire nation under one government. It is physically impossible if history is our teacher. Now, one thing that I wish you had covered a little bit closer is the expense of the war. This war has been more expensive if you were to look at it. People like Cato and the CBO and the Defense Department have said that this war has been more expensive than World War II, Vietnam, pretty sure Korea, and yet you fail to discuss anything about any sort of price. That's important. Now, you're saying about firing General McChrystal. If I were president, I would have fired McChrystal because he was ineffective. How many of those soldiers' deaths were under McChrystal? And of those other articles, I don't think you'll find that number. Which leads me to my next point. What other articles are you reading? Could you please cite your source? Even a high school, history student could tell you that you need to cite your sources for you to be a believable source of information. Now, Obama being Bush-like, that's a bit of a stretch. Now, other than the obvious, party differences, there is not much of a difference between the two, other than the fact that Obama put a new face on certain government entities that, honestly, we don't know about. Now, Pelosi huffing and puffing. Is that anything new? Is that anything different from any other politician that we have ever seen, honestly? The answer, no. Even Republicans don't honestly have any sort of legitimacy anymore, especially after Nixon and the Watergate scandal, and then Carter, and then Bush 1. And then Clinton. There has not been an honest-to-God believable politician since before Nixon. That's a long time of mistrusting the government. Now, you're talking about nation building, which is, the bridges and the schools and all that infrastructure that we were promising to build. It's not going to happen because we can't afford it. If you were to look at it, when we went into South America and into Latin America back at the turn of the 20th century, find the stat for how much we spent and then correlate that to today's numbers, because the price has definitely gone up since then. We honestly cannot afford to be in Iraq and be in Afghanistan building a nation. We cannot afford it with our current economic woes, which is something you probably should cover a little bit more. Also, the Middle East. We will never be able to stabilize the Middle East. Nobody will ever be able to stabilize the Middle East except the Middle East. The Middle East is something that I'd like to, analogize to medieval Europe. Medieval Europe was in constant war. If you were to look at it, Spain was always at war, Great Britain was always at war, every nation was always at war with someone else. So you cannot honestly expect to be able to go in and say, stop fighting. You can't. Because it's not human nature. Now that I got that out of the way, to one of the commenters, Hudif something like that, I don't know, I don't honestly care how to pronounce it. Who would benefit? Military industrial complex. Not going near that one because that's a conspiracy theory. The government. Duh. The government, honestly, can you honestly say the government does not benefit any time that there's war? Lobbyists. Yeah, lobbyists always benefit from everything. Big oil, which is the oil companies, as you said, it's in the name. Just because the Middle East is oil does not mean that oil companies want us to go to war with them. What kind of human being would wish one nation to go to war with another for no good reason? Honestly. Big Banksters, again, that's a conspiracy theory. My guess is you listen to Alex Jones. Now, I'm familiar with the man, and have established personally that I think he's a complete and total nut. Israel. Now, this is the one that I have an honest to God problem with. Israel. How does Israel benefit from this other than being safe? Israel has no other ally in the world besides us and maybe Great Britain, but I'm not entirely sure anymore. You said, and I quote directly, let me find it. They love seeing dead brown people on the news. That comes as a shock to me, considering that anybody that's from Israel is themselves brown. Explain to me how that exactly happens. Please. Please, I would love for you to explain it to me. Now, on to another issue. The Young Turks, actually. Do you know exactly where that phrase comes from? I do. The Young Turks was a young revolutionary group from Germany. This was pre-World War I. Are you familiar with the Armenian genocide? It's also known as the Great Starvation of Armenia. The Young Turks is responsible for that. They caused the annihilation of almost an entire race. Now, before you go saying, oh, he's a racist, he's a Nazi, no. I'm not a Nazi, I'm an observer of history. And I find it quite offensive that you, Young Turks, have a channel name that is of one of the most hateful groups next to the Nazis to ever come out of Germany, or Europe for that matter. So please, this time, now that I'm addressing you, and I've given you my name several times, now that there's a face to it, please respond. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, and have a nice night.